The Democrats are so anti-Trump, they became pro-wars. We know how many wars President Obama started. And we also know how many wars President Trump ended.
President Zelensky is going to be bullied into signing something away. That's why you have these European leaders coming as backup tomorrow.
This is such a stupid media narrative that they're coming here tomorrow because Trump is going to bully Zelensky into a bad deal.
I think that we had very good conversation with President Trump.
Very good.
And it really was the best one.
When you listen to the Democrats speaking, you would think President Trump is the worst president ever. Yet, look what President Zelensky just said. Even though us as conservatives, we do not like President Zelensky because this war could have been ended long time ago. Matter of fact, if President Trump was president in 2020, there was not going to be any war with Ukraine. Even President Putin acknowledged that.
I think it is an important day, a new phase, after 3 years and a half that we didn't see any kind of sign from the Russian side that there was a willing for dialogue. So something is changing, something has changed.
Something definitely has changed because now we have a president. Now we have a president that is in charge. Now we have a real leader in the Oval Office. Now we have a president that knows taking action is the way. It's not just talking. President Putin knew President Biden was weak and wicked. That's why President Putin did not take President Biden seriously. That's why this war has been happening for 3.5 years. But now President Putin knows, listen, Trump is there. I can't be playing the same games. That's exactly what has changed. Shout out to President Trump is the GOAT, man. President Trump is the GOAT.
Thanks to you.
I really want to thank you, President of the United States, dear Donald, for the fact that you, as I said before, broke the deadlock with President Putin by starting that dialogue.
I think in the past 2 weeks we've probably had more progress in ending this war than we have in the past 3.5 years.
Here we go. Even the European leaders, they do not even like President Trump. However, they have to acknowledge President Trump's leadership. Yet, when you listen to them Democrats, you would think President Trump does not want this war to end.
President Stube, I appreciate your time. I'm so glad to talk to you again. I know it has been a long day, and you had to be flexible and go with the flow. Some things happened, unexpected timing, and which speaks to the moment that we're in, the uncertainty. So at one point in this meeting, you're in the room across from Trump. You're sitting next to President Zelensky. And Trump at one point calls Putin in a call that Russia now says was 40 minutes long. I'm so curious, Mr. President, was there any conversation in the room about that call? Did Trump talk to you beforehand about it or after he got off the phone with Putin?
She wants to make it look like President Trump just decided by himself to call President Putin. And now she's asking the president of Finland, did you know about the call? This is the question you think that is necessary at this critical moment?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this was very much a day of Team Europe and Team US together supporting Ukraine. So first us Europeans, we had a pre-meeting, and then after that Zelensky had a bilateral meeting with President Trump. And then we spent the better part of 4 hours together with President Trump sussing out what we can do next. And one of the plans was for President Trump to tell President Putin basically what we had decided in the meeting. So yes, it was very coordinated and very constructive. Yes,
it was very coordinated. But the work journalist wants to make it seem like, oh, the NATO leaders, they're just here. They're not really part of the conversation. It's President Trump that just decided to call Putin. That's why she asked the question like how she asked the question.
So you're saying that call, when the meeting sort of got paused, it sounds like what you're saying is because of the conversation that you're having in the room, that you all sort of said, okay, he said, all right, well, I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm going to go call him now. You guys were all in agreement with it. This is sort of how it sort of organically played out.
That's what he just said. It was well coordinated. It was a Team US and Team Europe that got together for 4 hours, decided, okay, now let's have President Trump call Putin.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so basically there were 3 outcomes of today. The first one was a good conversation on security guarantees. In other words, security guarantees by Europe and coordinated with the United States for Ukraine. And we start that work on concrete things immediately. The second one was a suggestion of a bilateral meeting between Zelensky and Putin. And that was what President Trump was testing with President Putin, and President Putin had agreed to do that meeting. And then the third step is after the bilateral meeting, if everything goes well, which is of course always a big if when you're dealing with Putin, there'll be a trilateral meeting. So I think this was one of these meetings where we kind of took 3 steps forward rather than any backwards.
Look at the journalist. She's like, damn. She's like, let me try again so we can make President Trump look bad. Because these Democrats, that's all they care about. They don't want peace. They don't want the war in Ukraine to end. No, they want to show President Trump in a bad light. Let's try to find something bad to say about President Trump in this critical moment when the world can tell President Trump is taking his time from the America First agenda, trying to stop the war in Ukraine in order to save lives. But the Democrats, they cannot even respect and acknowledge that. They are trying to find any ridiculous thing to say about President Trump.
Do you know what Trump said to Putin on the phone? I mean, what were the specifics that he put out there?
Well, I mean, President Trump then, after the call, we agreed to meet in the Oval Office, and we had a very thorough briefing by him of the conversation. But obviously, in diplomacy, what happens in the Oval Office stays in the Oval Office when the media is not in there.
Well, that isn't always true, but I appreciate that you are taking the high road and doing the right thing.
The president said, what happens in the Oval Office stays in the Oval Office. This is how diplomacy works. And she's like, yeah, obviously it's not always true. These people, they hate President Trump so much. They even hate America. I swear. They don't care about anything else but make President Trump look bad.
I don't mean to laugh about it, but in this context, you're talking about he gets on the phone with Putin, then you all go into the Oval Office. There was a moment where I believe Trump was talking to your colleague, Keir Starmer, and he said something that was caught on a hot mic. He was talking about Putin. Let me play it for you, Mr. President.
I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand that, as crazy as it sounds?
So you have told, I know in the past, Mr. President, Trump that no one can trust Putin, right? You have the longest land border in Europe with Russia. And you have a lot of troops that are on that border, as you've told me. And that's because of Russia, right? To state the obvious. What is your response when Trump says something, even at this point, that he believes that Putin will make a deal for him, because of him?
Oh my God. You see, she's trying to create division between President Trump or between the United States and the NATO leaders. You see, the European leaders. You see how evil these Democrats are? Instead of trying to stick together so we can get to the finish line and end this ridiculous war, she's trying to create division between the president and President Trump. Damn.
Well, I mean, I've been involved in peace mediation before, and I think that President Trump is genuinely trying to bring this war to an end, and we're all working in that direction. But of course, we are dealing with President Putin, and we do have to understand that his, basic strategic aims have not changed, and they are threefold. He wants to see Russia as a superpower. He wants to split the West, and he wants to deny the sovereignty of Ukraine. So that's the reality that we're dealing with. The reality is also that we have, a minimum of 1,000 people dead or wounded every day. So we're trying to do our best through diplomatic means to find a solution to this conflict, to Russia's war of aggression.
You see, the president says he believes President Trump is doing everything he can to end this war. And it's very obvious, guys. It's very obvious. That's why President Trump is hard on President Zelensky. And that's why President Trump is also hard on President Putin. That's exactly how you negotiate. And one of the most important things President Trump has said, listen, if they're not willing to make a deal, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to walk away. And this is exactly how you negotiate. If you come to the negotiation table where you already show you're not willing to walk away, well, automatically you're not gonna get the best deal possible because they know you are desperate. But when you come and say, listen, man, if we're not gonna make a deal, I'm good to just walk away and let you guys fight with each other. And President Putin, of course, wants to make a deal because he knows what's coming. He knows President Trump is gonna increase sanctions, not just in Russia, but in all Russians allies, from India to China and so on. So President Putin knows, listen, if we don't make a deal, now my economy is going to get crushed. And guess what's going to happen if Russia's economy gets crushed? Of course, the Russian people are going to say, okay, enough is enough now. We've been in this war for 4 years, losing people, and now our economy is getting crushed. Mr. Putin, I think it's time for you to step aside. So Putin knows he has to make a deal. I think it's very obvious that President Trump is the only person that can get the job done, not just end the war in Ukraine, but also while ending the war in Ukraine, taking care of all these crimes happening in DC, also taking care of all these crimes happening in Delaware, all these things happening. President Trump is doing exactly what we believe he could do, which is law and order, which is bringing peace to the world. That's exactly why people voted for President Trump. But the Democrats, well, before I talk about the Democrats, let's talk about Kamala Harris. Can you guys imagine if it was Kamala Harris on this table yesterday with all these NATO leaders? First of all, they would not even come. Do you think Kamala Harris could get him a face-to-face meeting with President Putin? This election was so critical for the future of America. If Kamala Harris was the person in charge, I swear to God, this would have been, the border would become even more open. The border would become even more open. Putin would increase the damage in Ukraine.
We're going to work with Ukraine. We're going to work with everybody, and we're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long term. This is very long term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace.
One thing President Trump has proven over and over again is the fact that he does not like wars. He really does not like wars. In less than 6 months, President Trump has been in power. He already ended over 6 wars. Anyway, guys, as always, thanks for watching. If you have not subscribed, well, before I say that, I'm going to finish to say President Trump is really the GOAT. President Trump is really the GOAT. This man is really working probably 20 hours a day. 20 hours a day, not just to make America great again, but also to bring peace to the world. And honestly, I cannot think of a president that has the capacity to do what President Trump is doing. The only thing I can think of is Obama, that had the capacity to destroy not just America, but also every other countries that America had a relationship with, including Haiti. Anyway, guys, as always, thanks for watching. If you have not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment, let me know what you think as I continue to bring more and better content. We're getting a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera, which is good. Anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe.